Welcome back to Project 82, the SCP Remote Access Database. Which case file do you require?
Item number SCP-200. Object Class Euclid. SCP-200 requires a temperate, secure environment large enough to house the 1.68 by 2 meter bed frame it is affixed to. The room should be equipped with a large viewing window such that SCP-200 may be observed with minimal disturbance. In fact, when it is not being directly tested, SCP-200 should be left undisturbed. Particular care should be taken when collecting samples to avoid compromising the delicate outer shell of SCP-200. An automated mister should be set up to apply a fine mist to SCP-200 once a day. If SCP-200 appears to be drying out, an additional mist can be applied, but care should be taken not to allow it to become too moist. Due to the uncertain nature of SCP-200, the door to its containment area should be kept locked at all times, and direct interaction is restricted to Clearance Level 2 staff as a precaution. SCP-200 is contained within a chrysalis measuring 172.4 centimeters in length from stem to tip, attached to a standard queen-sized bed frame and mattress. The chrysalis is a mottled brown in color, and analysis shows it to consist of several layers of silk woven in such a way as to be coarse to the touch. The silk layers appear to be held together by SCP-200 itself was last seen as a 13-year-old Caucasian male measuring at 152 centimeters in height and weighing 168.73 kilograms. It retreated into its chrysalis on 2000, and researchers have been unable to explain how the child produced the silk to construct its encasement. Ultrasound tests have been unable to detect any solids within the chrysalis. However, fluid samples extracted from within revealed human DNA matching that of the child in question. It appears that the child has samples of the used to bind the chrysalis are also a DNA match for SCP-200. SCP-200 lies dormant a majority of the time, although it may be observed twitching occasionally, particularly if it is startled by sudden contact or a loud noise. However, in its current state it poses no threat. Notes: SCP-200 was retrieved from USA on 2000, approximately 28 hours after chrysalis presented. According to medical records, SCP-200 followed a normal pattern of human development until age 12. At this point, the child began to display a voracious appetite and rapidly gained weight over the course of the following year. Dr. a local pediatrician, was unable to identify a cause for the abrupt change in metabolism. The child's mother, concerned about his weight gain, attempted to restrict his diet. SCP-200 escaped into the surrounding woods. When authorities located the boy 72 hours later, he had doubled his weight on a diet of. After being returned home, SCP-200 developed its chrysalis. Following retrieval, Class A amnestics were administered to the child's mother, Dr. and local authorities. Local community was led to believe that to prevent concern about the boy's whereabouts and well-being. Addendum 200-1 SCP-200 was retrieved from blank USA. According to the most recent testing, SCP-200's DNA has been displaying a number of mutations. While ultrasound tests still reveal no solids, Dr. hypothesizes that the child may be developing into. This hypothesis remains controversial and requires further testing and observation. In light of these developments, request to reclassify SCP-200 under Euclid has been approved, and 24/7 observation shifts are being implemented to watch for SCP-200's emergence.
Case file ends. Which case file do you require?
Item number SCP-201. Object Class Euclid. No personnel are to come within 40 meters of SCP-201 at any time. Any and all work done with SCP-201 is to be performed via remotely controlled drone. Any personnel entering the containment area must be accompanied by 2 members of security. All personnel in containment area must wear a restraint harness with safety rope attached to the wall. Rope will allow access to within 3 meters of the minimum safe area. Exceeding this distance will result in physical removal from the containment area and formal discipline. Those affected by SCP-201 are to have time and date of exposure, disappearance, and return, along with any and all personal information, recorded in log. Subjects who reappear are to be recovered as soon as possible by agents and debriefed immediately. SCP-201 appears to be a very old piece of medical equipment, superficially resembling an IV stand, but with many other glass and metal items attached to it. SCP-201 stands 1.8 meters, 6 feet, tall, and has a mass of 36.5 kilograms, 80 pounds. The metal portions are made of steel and brass, and various parts are connected with rubber tubing. The 2 IV bags are porcelain and are open at the top. SCP-201 was recovered in hospital in a long unused storage area. No record of SCP-201 appears anywhere in hospital records. Entering within 30 meters of SCP-201 can result in the subject being displaced into an alternate reality. This effect is apparently random, with some subjects remaining totally unaffected after exposure to SCP-201. Those affected will cease to exist in our reality between 1 and 48 hours after initial exposure. The durations of displacement vary between a few hours and upwards of 8 years. Time spent in this alternate reality can vary greatly from actual time elapsed in our reality. This alternate world appears identical to our own, with these exceptions. It is apparently in a state of constant twilight, with no sun or moon visible at any time. Large banks of very dense grey fog travel very low to the ground. These fog banks are unaffected by wind and can make exposed skin feel very sticky and dirty. There is no plant or animal life anywhere. All places of human habitation, including major cities, appear as if all life suddenly vanished in the same instant. Most, if not all, electrical systems appear to be broken or without power. The air will randomly take on a grey-brown tint accompanied by strong wind. Subjects displaced to this alternate world report initial surprise and curiosity, which are shortly replaced with very strong feelings of loneliness and fear. The severity varies widely with individual subjects and the time of displacement. Upon the end of displacement, subjects will reintegrate from this alternate world to our own, which can cause a great deal of shock, especially in urban settings. Most subjects who remain displaced for more than 3 months suffer lasting psychological damage consistent with being sequestered within solitary confinement.
Case file ends. Which case file do you require?
Item number SCP-205. Object Class Euclid. SCP-205-1 and SCP-205-2 are contained within Chamber 52 at Site-23 under regular observation via the adjoining observation room. SCP-205-1 and SCP-205-2 are to be supplied with power and face the white projection screen on the wall opposite the observation window at all times. Chamber 52 requires monthly maintenance to ensure the continued operation of both SCP objects, the power supply, and remote activation controls. Replacement parts and bulbs are kept on hand in the chamber. Maintenance is suspended during the final month of the SCP-205 cycle, occurring in April and October of each year. Should power to Chamber 52 fail, It is to remain dark and sealed for a period of 30 days, before local security re-enters to re-engage power for continued observation and containment. During maintenance, it is critical that only one of the SCP-205 pair is ever turned off at a time. Should both objects lose power or otherwise cease normal operation, the chamber must be sealed for a 30-day period before local security may enter to re-engage power and retrieve the remains of any personnel lost in the chamber. Pending O5 review, testing and observation is to continue before SCP-205 is to be moved to permanent storage. SCP-205 is a pair of flood lamps used in photography. The light emitted by each lamp behaves in a manner unique to SCP-205 and passes completely through any surface that is not colored white. Once the light contacts a white surface, it scatters and reflects as normal and loses any unnatural properties. If the light continues uninterrupted through any matter, otherwise casting no shadow, each lamp will display an unidentified young woman's shadow upon any flat white surface, such as the projection screen in Chamber 52. Whether or not this shadow corresponds to anyone living or dead has yet to be determined, although the shadow appears to reenact a specific series of events leading up to the woman's death. If even the lamps are slightly moved, the shadow remains distinct and does not lose focus or move along with one lamp or the other. Only one shadow is cast, although a physical person standing before two lamps would actually cast two shadows. When supplied with steady power and maintained, the SCP-205 pair will go through a 6-month cycle that ends on April 30th and October 31st of each year. Neither the inclusion of an extra day during a leap year nor intermittent operation failures change these dates. Thus, SCP-205's cycle appears to be tied to the standard calendar rather than a set passage of time. SCP-205 will shut off at midnight on the final day of each cycle. Any persons entering or already inside Chamber 52 when the lamps are both turned off are violently assaulted by forces unseen in a manner consistent with the fate suffered by the Shadow Woman, regardless of any other light sources in the room. If the lamps are shut off at the end of a standard 6-month cycle, they can be remotely activated to immediately end the danger and begin a new cycle. If the lamps cease operating for any other reason, Chamber 52 will remain dangerous and must remain sealed for at least 30 days, regardless of the status of SCP-205 itself. During a dangerous phase, any equipment in the room is often ransacked, but although SCP-205 itself has sometimes been moved, the lamps are never damaged. On 2 occasions, were carved into the walls. This strongly implies that displaying an awareness of current containment procedures. Overview of SCP-205's cycle. For the first month of operation, SCP-205 will display a still image of one woman in a provocative pose. Although variances have been noted in the pose and clothing of the woman, the individual displayed appears to be distinct and consistent through all cycles. During the last week of the first month, the shadow will begin to move slightly as if the individual is shifting her weight or becoming uncomfortable. Her hair and clothing will be observed to flutter in ways that do not correspond to any movement of the atmosphere within Chamber 52. By the end of the first calendar month, the shadow will break her pose and spend the next 8 hours moving through a series of poses that imply a photography session complete with clothing changes and short breaks, sometimes including a meal. After the session is over, the shadow will constantly be in motion for the next 5 months, displaying a pantomime of the last days of a young model's life before she is brutally murdered at the end of the cycle. The shadow of the woman never moves beyond the boundaries of the projection screen. The shadows of objects that the woman appears to be interacting with do not appear unless they are being picked up or carried, and with the exception of the final month of the cycle, any other individuals that the shadow appears to be interacting with are not seen. Although the cycle is slightly different each time, certain consistencies are observed. The individual portrayed appears to have taken up photography as a hobby, in addition to being a fashion model. Her behavior implies a great deal of social interaction, although with a lack of intimacy in behavior that indicates living alone rather than with a family or a partner. One implied sexual encounter with an unseen partner occurs in the second or third month of the cycle, and exactly 66 explicit sexual encounters occur in the final month of the cycle. During the last month of the cycle, in April and October, shadows distinct from the young woman are displayed. These shadows all have exaggerated nude male physiques and horns projecting from the cranium, although no phallus is ever observed, even during the sexual displays that take up the final days of the cycle. Only one shadow appears at first, interacting with the woman in a manner suggesting that they have met at a party or social gathering. The woman does not appear to notice the unusual nature of the other shadow and plays out a series of varying romantic interactions with it. The horned shadow will return to dine with the woman, engage in silent conversation, and accompany her on outings. One recurring event involves the horned shadow introducing the woman to at least 2 other identical horned figures. After the second week of the month, the woman will take photographs of one or more of the horned shadows during one of their outings, always with a non-digital camera that has been consistent through all observed viewings of the SCP-205 cycle. After this event, explicit sexual encounters will begin between the woman and one of the figures, increasing in intensity and frequency until the end of the 3rd week. During the final week of the month, the woman appears to develop the film in her camera for the first time since photographing the horned shadows. Her reaction to the photographs is one of shock and horror, and her movements afterwards suggest that she attempts to flee and seek shelter behind a locked door, presumably in her home. There she is encountered by multiple instances of the horned shadow figure, which assault her repeatedly for the remainder of the week. It is strongly implied that she is killed during this process, although the assaults will continue until the end of the cycle. On the last day of the cycle, one of the horned shadows begins to grow larger in a manner suggesting that the figure casting it is approaching the SCP-205 lamps directly. It will eventually overcast all other shadows, and at this time both lamps will be physically turned off regardless of any modifications made to prevent a halt in operation. Addendum: SCP-205-1 has been in the Foundation's possession since SCP-205-2 is identical in every way, including the serial number. It was discovered in a ransacked motel room on. No sign of the identity or whereabouts of the occupant have been found, although a camera similar to the one displayed in the 6th month of the SCP-205 cycle was also recovered. Most of the contained film was ruined by exposure. See attached photo for the one image that was developed from the camera. Incident 205-76B. On the 20th of October, SCP-205-2's bulb burnt out. Researcher M. was sent into Chamber 52 to replace the bulb during one of the climatic assaults. Upon the opening of Chamber 52's door, all horned shadow figures within view ceased their activity and turned towards the door. Researcher resealed the chamber and refused to enter to perform maintenance. Shadow figures did not resume their usual activity for approximately 3 hours. Incident 205-77A. On the 28th of April, SCP-205-2's bulb exploded. Shadow figures all ceased activity and looked towards the chamber door. No staff were dispatched to replace the bulb. Chamber 52 sealed and abandoned for 30 days according to procedure.
Thank you for your participation in Project 82, transmitting psioanalytic data to Dr.